Why did I stay with my shitty ex? Am I in a toxic relationship? How am I going to move on and find love? We're your hosts, Izzy
and Meredith,
and welcome to ExFacts, Relationships and Breakups. Relationships are confusing. When they end, we're left picking up the pieces and wondering what went wrong. So, each episode on ExFacts, we'll hear stories from real people sharing their experiences in relationships. We'll also hear from experts to help us uncover the deeper meaning behind our actions and emotions. At the end of every episode, we'll answer a listener's question. No topic is off limits, so ask us anything you want to know. From conflict and healing to dating and love, ExFacts will take you on a mind-blowing journey to explore all aspects of our amazing, imperfect, frustrating relationships. Welcome to the next episode of ExFacts, Relationships and Breakups. We're your hosts, Meredith and Izzy. So I'm really excited about today's episode.
Yeah, today we have a lovely guest. Her name is Gina, and she is a doula. I've never met a doula before. Izzy has the bun in the oven.
Yes.
We both have a lot of questions.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, first of all, can you tell us how you came to be a doula?
That's almost like a longer story than the information I have in my brain about a doula, to be honest.
Yeah.
Kind of, well, long story short, I have a daughter. She's 10 years old. And whenever I had her, it was just, the situation I was in at the time. I decided to place her for adoption. So there was a lot that happened during my pregnancy and like my whole birth experience where I just felt like I didn't have very much support. And there was a lot of, people talk to you like kind of like you already halfway like you're stupid and kind of also like you already like you should already know things. So it was like I'm already kind of dealing with my own emotional stuff that's going on and like pre-birth and everything like that. But then after like my whole birthing experience, I had a terrible the labor and delivery afterwards was really bad. And there's not a lot of, there's a lot of insensitivity surrounding the issue about adoption. And so for me, I just was like, it's crazy that I've been working almost my entire life in corporate for like an engineer, like these like men that are just acting like everything so like such a serious issue. And then when I actually got to attend my first birth, I was just like, nothing else in life matters. Like this is what it's about. And the fact that a lady literally complains less during her childbirth and like asks for less than I was getting asked for by like, all of these men in corporate America that I've been working for. And like, they actually have a reason to be in pain and like suffering. I was like, no, like I need to be doing this other thing. Like I need to be helping out like the community and the women in the community. And so that's really like what got me started on the path, I had the adoptive mom that I chose. It just happened to be a doula.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know anything about being a doula. I didn't even know what the word was, what it meant, like during my pregnancy. So I was just kind of, I was scared. I was nervous and I didn't know what to expect. People are saying things like using words like episiotomy and like, there's like all these big words that you're like, what does that even mean? Like,
do you know what that means?
That's when you tear, right?
Yeah. Well, when they tear it on purpose, so it.
Oh, they
like
cut it.
Right? They cut it.
Yeah. Is that what happened to you, or no?
No, I thankfully because I had the doula, they didn't. But that's just something that a lot of hospitals will just. They don't even necessarily have the conversation with you. A lot of times they'll just do it. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, and I mean, for me, I wish I would have been more educated. I know now, and I understand now why I would have chose what I chose and stuff like that. Yeah. I'm glad that I had an advocate though, because someone that I really aligned with when it came to what we really, you know, how we wanted the birth experience. And so I think that was also like another factor, because of the support that I did have, like having no support, and then also like the day of just having the strongest support that I needed for my labor and delivery. It was like, those are the two things. The people who are there supposed to be supporting aren't doing that. And so the only way that people are going to be getting educated is if we're out in the community, if we're like, you know, supporting each other, and also like just having conversations about weird things that happen with your body, you know, before, during, and after. And I had so many like doctors that would be like, oh, you're supposed to feel like that. You're supposed to feel like that. And it's like 5 years later and I'm still having, you know, serious issues. 8 years later, having serious issues. And, you know, finally getting some answers to some things, but I didn't know that's what it was this whole time. Because it's just like, oh, you're supposed to be like that. You're supposed to be like that.
I think doctors are, in general, from my experience, just so dismissive of patients. They assume their patients don't know what's good for them, don't know what they're talking about, and that they know better. But not only that, I think I've had this experience with a woman doctor. Actually, I don't think I've had the experience with a male doctor, but I've heard a lot about it. During the birthing process, like, it's just so easy to get bulldozed, you know, they're just trying to get you like in and out, easiest way possible for them. And like with no regard for you, your mental health, your baby's like vibes when it's entering the world. And I've heard like really, really terrible horror stories. So I think like if I ever was pregnant, I would definitely want a doula, just to like have another person in the room to be like, no, fuck you, hold on a minute. Because you're like so scared too, and you're probably like, I don't know, they know best, whatever. Just someone else to like fact check.
Exactly.
Yeah, so like I feel like so far I like my doctor and everything, but I do and my pregnancy so far, knock on wood, has been like really,
it's not a wood table, sorry.
Yes, wood table, has been pretty easy physically, but I feel like mentally I feel like I'm going fucking crazy.
Really? Why? Like what specifically?
I just feel like I have been like, my highs are higher and my lows are lower, and like I'm more like prone to like mood swings kind of, and like I'm used to kind of like, okay, yeah, I can be happy and sad in a day, that's not weird, but like I feel like sometimes I feel like I'll be like the happiest and the saddest I've ever been like in my life in a day, and that's like really like, it just makes me like it's just, it's like, it's weird being in my own head like that, because I'm like, that's not what my head is used to feeling.
That's like hormonal, right?
Yeah, probably. And then I feel like part of it, I've been trying to like reflect on it a little bit. I feel like part of it's hormonal, part of it's just like, you know, I'm a first time mom. And it's just like, there's a lot of like shit, like where it's like, I am anxious, I am excited. Like these are like legit emotions. It is about to be a really big like life change. So it's like, I am just about like, all these things are just emotions.
All at once.
But what do you think?
What's your assessment?
I think that, you know, I do think that hormones play a big part in it. And I think that I mean, also a lot of sometimes insecurities, you know, they can just kind of come up, and anxiousness, because kind of comes back to, I think, just not knowing what to expect, really. Like everything is just put so simply, kind of, and when you're pregnant and people are talking to you and it's just so matter of fact, like, oh, okay, like, you know, her water broke or what, you know, it's just, it's like, all right,
like part of me
like,
just busted open,
like, really
everywhere. It's a big deal.
And sometimes it's like, it's such a weight, like, I feel like the waiting is what drives people the craziest.
That's what definitely is driving them the craziest.
Yeah.
For real.
Because you're just like, what are you gonna look like? How are you gonna, like, aside from all of the like awkward, like, I don't know what to expect, like whenever it comes to like the physical aspect and all of that, then you're just like, well, like, are you gonna cry all night?
Yeah,
Like, through the night? Are you gonna touch? Like, how big are you gonna be? How are you, like, you know, like, what are our vibes gonna be like? And it's just like a lot of, what if I do it wrong? What if I'm not gonna do it right? Like, what if I'm not ready for this? What if, you know, all of the kind of like what ifs. And I don't know, that's what I hear a lot.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely, for me, it's been the waiting thing. Everyone's always like, oh, it's gonna go by so fast. It's like, girl, it's not going by fast.
Yeah.
It's not going by fast.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating part, because it's almost like you, at some point, you just feel like you're getting gaslighted or something, because you're just like, yo, like, it's not for you, but it's like,
that's what
let me have my
like, oh,
feelings.
you're 25 weeks already, and then I'm like,
you're like, it feels like 5 years.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, it went by so quickly. I'm like, no, it didn't.
Like,
last year I was 24 weeks. You know, like, it feels like, because my mom had hip surgery in October, and like I was, you know, I was in my like 3rd month then or whatever, and I was like, she's about to have another one, and I was like, oh, I legit thought she had the first one like last year. October, and I was like, oh my God, that was really not that good.
Yeah, well, I think people like project their feelings onto you, but also because they're uncomfortable, you know, or like they want it to go by fast for you to make themselves feel better. So that they try to like convince you that that's what's happening. And just even like, it's gotten a lot better, but just normalizing all the wacky shit that is involved with pregnancy, and like, it doesn't have to be taboo, like, it is a thing that happens. And like, why are we ashamed of something that happens to us that we have no control over when we're bringing a human into the world?
I know. And it's another thing that's like stressful too, is like, you're always so or I feel like I'm always so focused inward, like, oh, how am I feeling right now? Because that's gonna mean that's how I'm gonna feel for the next 3 months. Like, and so the whole first trimester, I was like paranoid that everyone has a terrible first trimester. I didn't, but like the whole time I was like waiting to puke.
You're like, when is it gonna start to suck?
Just waiting to throw up. And I didn't throw up, but like every day I was like ready for it, you know? And then the second trimester, I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be great, but like I felt good, but like I didn't, like, I'm still going crazy in my head. And then so
how many like births have you assisted with?
Oh God, I have like around 50.
Oh wow.
It's the birthing part. This is a frustrating part too, like, that to me as a doula has been frustrating, especially during COVID, is that I put a lot of work in with clients that I never really got to be a part of the birth experience.
Oh yeah, because of COVID.
It was more like
The
getting
lead
them
up.
prepared for the birth. The lead up, and then postpartum, which you know, that's a lot of my clients. You know, that's a big part of what I do. And so I've assisted that many clients, but births probably under 10, because like I just couldn't be in person, you know, or I just for postpartum clients. So I'm like, I had a lady that was due in the end of November, beginning of December. She went and almost into like, I think she ended up going into labor like January or like December, like around the 20th, 22nd or something like that. So she was waiting and waiting and waiting. We were going to do a home birth, and it just things just weren't working out, you know, for her situation to have a home birth. So then she was forced to go to the hospital. And it's like, it was supposed to be kind of like my big first home birth, you know, also just like after being kind of like after I left California, I moved here at the beginning of the year last year. So it's going to be my, you know, first birth out here, first birth, you know, post COVID, you know, and I don't know, I was just like a little bit disappointed, to be honest.
That makes sense.
Because I really miss it. I really do miss like just the whole experience, being there, and just like, honestly, it's just like, it's very hard to put into words for me, because I feel like it's the most like, you know, when you see something and you just, there are literally no words. I'm like, I just want to take you, like, just come with me, like, come watch this thing. This is crazy. You know what I mean? And it's like, you can't do that, but
well, helping someone with something so important and huge must be very gratifying. I mean, like you said, it's such an important thing and such a lovely thing to be doing. I'm sure it's get a little, what do you have any like ridiculous stories, good or bad?
Oh my God. Well, my first birth that I attended, it was a lady who, you know, was a girl. She was, she had decided that she was going to place for adoption, and she hadn't met the adoptive family yet. So they were going to be flying down from like the northern part of California to come, you know, be with her during the birth. But when she went into labor, she didn't have anybody. And so the agency called me and they're like, hey, like, this chick's in LA, she's going to labor right now, like, can you go? And you know, she had all these like health issues. She had to get like a blood transfusion.
Oh my God.
And I was there, I got to the hospital, like literally just immediately like dropped everything. I always take a shower before I go to my birth. So I jumped in the shower, rinsed off, like get all clean for her, you know, get my little bag together. I ran up to LA, and when I get there, you know, it was a little bit of a whole thing getting in. And once all of that, I had to wait, just because of the timing of like when she had to get a blood transfusion and like all the stuff that was going on. I just couldn't see her for a while. But then once I got there, the labor ended up, from the time I got to the hospital to the time I left was like 32 hours. Like, it was insane. I was so exhausted. It was like, I was so delirious. I was so exhausted, but it was like so exhilarating and just thrilling, like all at the same time, that I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to drive myself home right now, but like, I'm going to do it. But it was just, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, I couldn't even sleep, because it was just like, wow, that was just very incredible. The family like got to come, and just, it was very sweet. They were very sweet with her. They were very sweet with the baby, and they were just very kind, and it felt, I felt an overwhelming, like a lot of, you know, I was overwhelmed with emotion, because that's just a difficult enough situation in of itself. But then it's like, it's my first time to see all this, and I'm like, that's what it like looks like down there. Like, I've been the one to do it before, but I've never been the one to actually see it. And just, you know, be like, okay, like, take your last, you know, one more breath, or one more whatever. And so I would just say, like, that was kind of the fact that it was so long, the longest birth like I've had. And I just remember it was just all a blur, but I loved every minute of it.
I'm sure she was glad you were there, since she didn't have anyone and it lasted 32 hours. That's horrifying.
So do you like specialize in people who are adopting, or are you like
So I would say, like, just by default of the community that, because I just moved out here in January. I was living in Southern California since 2010.
Yeah.
So I had kind of a community there, that I had known people in the adoption industry. And for me, it's like an extra cost that people don't really, think isn't important necessarily, like whatever it comes down to, it's not really something that's provided usually for a birth mom. But I kind of wanted to, I would love to normalize that. I would love for agencies to just be like, this is part of our wrapped up costs, like you're automatically gonna, the doula, your lady's gonna choose somebody. And that's what I would love to see. It's not that I don't, work with families and work with couples. It's just that for me, if I'm going to be completely honest with myself, I find it easier to work with either single moms or I don't know. I feel like sometimes I'm not sure the boundaries or like how to maneuver certain conversations or situations, or say, this is what you're asking me and this is what I know. And sometimes it's a little bit awkward just about with them getting on the same page with each other alone. So when it's just me one-on-one with somebody else, it kind of makes it a little bit easier to, I feel like, for them to kind of process and then make whatever the decision they feel like that they need to make for themselves.
And I feel like also your help, I mean, those are the people
who need
it
most
too,
guidance
and
support.
I mean, I'm sure the people going through adoption, that is probably like, a lot of emotions.
Yeah. Well, and probably a whole different birth experience too, just knowing that like you're not going to be keeping the finished product, like it has to feel different.
That's the crazy thing too, is like, I think how people can compartmentalize like their pregnancies whenever they know that, okay, well, I'm going to leave the hospital and I'm not going to go home with my child, or maybe I'm not going to, shop and buy clothes for them. Maybe I'm not going to go to the baby aisle. Maybe there's certain boundaries that I set for myself during my pregnancy to make it easier for me to cope with later. So I feel like that, I don't know, that is a part of kind of people are trying to like prepare themselves mentally. But then I feel like the thing that it was very frustrating in California. You can either sign, so when you sign your rights away, you can either do an immediate termination of rights, or but the standard form without paying extra money to get it, done immediately, is that you have 30 days to change your mind. So even when you're at the hospital, you sign your rights over for like just to leave the hospital basically, and for them to have custody. But then you have up to 30 days to come back and say like, just kidding. I changed my mind. I can't do this.
I can't believe you have to pay for that.
Well, I just mean like the state, like the regular form is the 30-day, but a lot of people who just want it to be immediate, either the birth parents or the, adoptive parents will say like, we just want to get this, we just want this to go through right away, so we'll pay for it. Usually the adoptive parents or like the agency, they work out how they're gonna do that.
It's just like a weird thing to charge
it's
for.
Not a
I
normal,
feel like
they're not. Like if you're talking to the agency, they may not even bring that up. You know what I mean?
It's just like, it doesn't feel like it should involve a monetary exchange for like a human life, and like how quickly we want.
That's a whole.
It's ridiculous.
That's a whole nother. It's the laws around adoption, like, don't even get me started. Like, someone will come to find me because it's crazy. It's crazy.
How did that whole situation affect your relationship with the child's biological father? Were you talking to that person at the time? Were you not?
Yeah, like we're still close friends, and like literally, like sometimes like you have nothing to say, but you just want to like, hey, are you okay? Like I'm thinking about you. And a lot of times we'll end up being like, yo, I was literally just thinking about you. we had a pretty rocky road, I will say that, but I have nothing. It's really very difficult for me to speak poorly about him, just because I take as much responsibility for, you know, the situation that we put ourselves in.
Do you find that brought you guys closer together or farther apart?
Oh, not at first. Not at first, but like we learned to kind of like be there for each other.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like maybe sometimes it was like not always the healthiest. Like I think that now things are pretty, like we're chill. We're like 10, 11 years out from this. So we you know, but there have been years where it's like, I never want to see you again. Like I never, like I know I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you. I'm angry with you. But at the core of who I feel like we both know each other are, we try not to like lash out too much and angry when we were mad or frustrated. I knew what the common goal was at the end. For me, at the end of the day, like you can go and never talk to me again, but you're not going to not be a part of your daughter's life. So whatever you have to do to build that relationship and make sure that you're there from day one, showing up for the visits, even if she's an infant, even if she's 6 months old, even if she's 1 year old, like it's important. I don't care. Like you need to be here. So I think for me, the frustrating learning curve is just feeling like I was like co-parenting with all of these people, even though there's no co-parenting at all. Like I'm not even parenting. So like,
how often did
it
you
was just
see her, or do you see?
How often?
Yeah.
Do I see her? I feel like it's been a rocky road. Like there's been years when I've seen her a lot more. There's been years where like I would say roughly I see her once a month if all the visits like 12 times a year, you know. Sometimes the visits would be, I get to see her like 3 or 4 times a month, and just on some random shit because we're both going to be, you know, in the same area or whatever. And then it'd be like, okay, like now I didn't see you for 5 months. And it was a lot of times we tried to, it's been very difficult the last like year and a half since I've been gone, because she, you know, she's in LA County and I'm in Connecticut now. And I just thought I was coming out here for a few months, and now I've been here for over a year. And so, you know, I was taking trips back and forth every 2 months and, you know, trying to get to see her as much as I could. But honestly, it's like, it really does, it's been hard trying to build my life after COVID and get back on my feet after not having a job for 2.5 years. So there's, you know, there's only so much you can do right now. I haven't seen her since probably like August. And I was supposed to see her in October, and it just hasn't happened. You know.
Do you have a good relationship with the adopted parents?
I do.
I'm sure it has its
we
challenges.
have a good relationship. Yeah, we have a good relationship. It has a lot of challenges, but at the end of the day, I trust that, you know, they're making the choices that they're making with her because they believe it's the best thing for her. And even though sometimes that's hard for me to accept because I don't feel that that's how
you would do it,
how I would do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I still respect them, and I still, try to set those boundaries, and don't really talk to my daughter. Sometimes I don't really talk to my daughter about that stuff,
Yeah.
I try to like lightly course correct where I feel like I can without, being disrespectful.
Yeah.
Yes. But it's definitely, it's a challenge. And I think for me, the hardest part is when I'm trying to travel and coordinate travel, and to them, it's just like they have their whole life going on that they're doing all the time. You know what I mean? And to me, it's like, I need to figure out, like, I need you to make time for me. Like, I need to feel like this is just as important for you as it is for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I struggle with that, I think, sometimes, but
well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's emotionally difficult, but just the logistics, it's a whole nother level.
Yeah, I've never been so far away from her, and especially for so long. We're usually a county away. We've been 2 counties away was the most we've ever been.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little
well,
rough
you're
sometimes.
a superwoman.
Yeah.
That's
that's
amazing.
I mean, it's crazy how you turn something that is such a pivotal time in your life, and seems like it was difficult in a lot of ways, and beautiful in some ways too, into something where you're really helping people.
Yeah.
So really awesome.
And it's like, for me, I think that it's like using your pain to like heal yourself almost.
Yeah.
Which is something I never would have imagined would like work, but it kind of does in some way for me. So
yeah, totally. You're like remastering what happened to you by helping other people not have that experience.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Izzy, do you want to hire her?
Oh yeah. No, for real. We should definitely you should definitely give me your phone.
You have her email.
I said what?
I do have your email. Okay, awesome. That's
well,
amazing.
Thank you so much for talking to us and being so open and sharing all of that. That's awesome. I respect and admire you so much for everything you're doing.
Me too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. You can catch a new episode of ExFacts next week. Hit that follow button so you don't miss out on any of the action. We want to hear from you, so leave us a comment or review. Until next time, bye.